is a new format that allows us to bring people together and design our response despite our current restrictions. I strongly believe that today and in the coming months, our communications will allow all of us to unleash the power of sport for all, to serve as a tool to fight the pandemic and the greatest challenges that we are facing. May I assure you all that TAFISA is ready for this fight. This webinar enters within the framework of the new cooperation that we have built within the African Union Sports Council, and is the first of a series that we are currently developing, which will explore and tackle in the coming months a diversity of issues related to sport for all in Africa. In this light, it is a symbol that we have chosen the topic of gender equity in sport for all to launch this series. It is a priority for TAFISA, African Union Sports Council, and AWISA, with whom we have also partnered for this webinar, to ensure that all women have universal access to opportunities for participation in sport for all, and are empowered to take a leading role in our field. Today, you will hear reflections from representatives of the 5 African Union regions on what is the state of play of women's participation, empowerment, and leadership in sport for all. We hope, as a conclusion, to be able to better understand what are the opportunities, challenges, and gaps that we are facing in various geographical realities of the continent. This first step and webinar will be followed by a second one on the same topic in the coming weeks, which will focus more on the practice and how to make positive change. We are very humbled to have you all with us today, as I am proud to say that this webinar, more than 100 participants have registered from various countries around the globe for this webinar, representing organizations from all facets of society, intergovernmental organizations, governments and ministries, sport movement, international sports federations, and NGOs. I look forward to today's debate and shaping together the African Sport for All movement through gender equity and women's participation, empowerment, and leadership. I thank you all for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tadeo, for those words of welcome on behalf of the TAFISA Board of Directors. I would now like to turn to Monsieur Robert Auguste from AUSC to provide words of welcome on their behalf. Monsieur Auguste, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jean-François. Excellencies, members of the Executive Committee of TAFISA and AWISA, distinguished invitees, experts, good morning or good afternoon, and greetings from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. I wish to convey the greetings of the head of sports, who sends his regards and greetings on this very important discussion that we are carrying out today. Just let me remind everybody that we have the AUSC, which is based in Yaoundé, Cameroon, which is I'm talking on their behalf today, but we are the sports division, which is based in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, from the African Union headquarters. With the mandate to develop the policy framework for the sustainable development of sports in Africa, the Department of Social Affairs of the African Union engaged policymakers, individuals, the Department of Social Affairs, and also individuals with a passion of sports and actors in sports development. It was the understanding that such exercise should not only be another official document, but one with which all actors in the domain of African sport could identify with. The policy addresses new developments such as hosting the major sporting events on the continent, participation of the continent's best athletes in competition in Africa to raise the standard and the status of such events, and the ever-increasing challenges of doping in sports, just to name a few. The policy framework for the sustainable development of sports in Africa has been developed with the purpose to promote participation and excellence, build capacity, and promote ethics and values of sport in Africa. The vision of the sports policy is to provide a dynamic and leading edge sport environment that enables all Africans to experience and enjoy involvement in sports to the extent of their abilities and interests, in increasing numbers, perform consistently and successfully competitive and in the recreational context that they choose. Within these key policies, it covers Sport for All, which is a movement for promoting the Olympic ideas that sport is a human right for the individuals, regardless of the race, social class, and sex. It seeks to pursue the promotion of health, fitness, and well-being through sport activities which can be adapted to the people of all ages, both sexes, and different social and economic conditions, despite local and regional cultures. Strong political commitment and support to all levels that are essential prerequisites for the development and sustainability of sport for all and physical activities within the member states. There were some recommended strategies that it proposed to facilitate the participation of the community in sport forum and other recreational programs according to their interests, facilitate the participation of members of security services and civil public servants in various sports activities by working in coordination with the respective ministries and agencies, facilitate the participation of workers in different types of sport activities by working in collaboration with the labor unions, ensure direct participation of women in sport activities at their locality, educational institutions and workplaces, and also ascertain the equal sharing of all benefits. Also, make sport activity accessible to every man and woman with due regard for their individual aspirations and abilities, the whole range of organized or recreational sports. Gender equality is a fundamental goal of development and belongs to the basic and universally recognized civil, cultural, economic, and political, as well as social rights. The aim of the AU gender equality policy is to ensure that all member states' interventions increase women and men's participation and opportunities to exercise their rights equally and to gain equal access and control over the benefits of development. Sport can give women access to public spaces where they can gather, develop new skills together, gain support from others, and enjoy freedom of expression and movement. It can promote education, communication, negotiation skills, and leadership, of all which are essential for women empowerment. The policy also aims to achieve the following: A, promote gender equality in political and economic life, particularly in employment-related matters, promote equal participation and representation in decision-making bodies at all levels, ensure that all women have the equal opportunity to participate in sport in a safe and supportive environment, which preserves the rights, dignity, and respect of all individuals, equal opportunity to participate and be involved in sports regardless of race, religion, ability, or social origin. To promote female leadership, including increasing in a number of women coaches, advisors, and decision makers, provide education and training programs that address gender equality. Recently, the African Union has gone on a project to revise the policy. And within that policy, now we talk about the 5 pillars, distinct pillars of development, which are Active Africa, a Sustainable Africa, Winning Africa, an Innovative Africa, and an Active Africa. Within the Active Africa, where the topic of discussion that we are talking about today, which is Sport for All, it covers recreation, health, and wellness programs, as well as institutional sports. The overarching policy goal is to improve and sustain the health of well-being of all nations by providing access to sustainable mass participation in physical activity, sports and recreation opportunities, facilities, and programs at all levels. Within the United Africa, in social inclusion and equality, member states must develop and strengthen gender mainstream and right-based legislative, regulatory, and strategic frameworks for the promotion, advancement, and safeguarding of fundamental children and human rights in the rights of all marginalized and vulnerable constituencies. I would like on behalf of the African Union to take up the opportunity to convey our heartfelt thank you to TAFISA and AWISA for the initiative, and to reassure that AUC will support any initiative that bolster gender equality and participation. This is also another opportunity to popularize our policy framework and to seek collaboration, like it was mentioned before by the Vice Chair, for its realization across all fronts. To you, honorable participants, I wish to thank you for your contribution and wish you all fruitful deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Auguste, for those heartfelt welcome words. It is now time to turn to the president of AWISA, our third partner for this webinar, Mrs. Sheila Desha. Mrs. Desha, the floor is yours.
To every one of you, especially my learned friends who have just spoken before me from AUSC and TAFISA. I feel honored to welcome you in the name of AWISA, that is African Women in Sport Association. This is a momentous occasion for AWISA to be part of this wonderful event, as this is the first time that the three partners, AUSC, TAFISA, and AWISA, are together with the aim to promote gender equity in sport for all. I know that this feeling of accomplishment must be felt by AWISA founder president, Honorable Pendukini, who is among us today. So first of all, let me extend my warm welcome to those who will set the stage. Ms. Nonhlanhla and Nzuza and Garoes, as well as one who is an expert in the field, Mr. Stanley Mutoya. They will appeal to us to exercise our mind on the three pillars under discussion today, namely participation, empowerment, and leadership. They will help us to reflect on what is meant by sport for all meaning exactly what. Because we, on the part of AWISA, we are trying very hard to reach women far and wide in all countries, in all regions, in order to offer them opportunities to practice a sport activity or a physical activity. Next, I welcome the AWISA regional presidents, Anna, Delta, Blanche, Mahmoud, and Sarah. They are facing great challenges in their respective countries, as well as in their regions. You regional presidents, you are aware of the huge task ahead of you in order to reach equity in sports for all. I am sure that today you are happy to present your views. You will share with us your experiences, your successes, your problems, while discussing how equity can be achieved, whether we can provide all with the necessary resources and support, how to overcome the barriers, what strategies would you propose? So, dear regional presidents, We are keen to hear you, and we will enjoy listening to you. Next, I welcome all this impressive group of participants. You who occupy top-level posts in your country as sports leaders, sports managers, policymakers, etc. We thank you from the bottom of our heart for your valuable presence. In fact, we are all here today because we share a mutual passion. We want to promote women in sport, especially today on the African continent. We are confident that all participants will thoroughly enjoy all the presentations, as it is hoped that this webinar will make us more knowledgeable as well as more productive. As for you participants, we will hear your voice during the questions and answers session. AWISA also hopes that this webinar will offer us a different mindset in our mandate, as we must accommodate the unprecedented challenges of COVID-19 in all our projects. And we hope that this webinar will help us to come up with a few implementable proposals that will make a difference in whichever community we are in when we go back to work in our region. Before ending, I wish to stretch out my sincere appreciation to my associates, AWISA close collaborators, who have strived hard to make this webinar a success. Mr. Robert Auguste and Ms. Nzuza from AUSC, Mr. Jean-François Laurent and Ms. Keri McDonald from TAFISA. And AWISA is looking forward to such close partnerships and collaborations again. So, for now, we are all feeling energetic, enthusiastic, and mentally alert for this engaging webinar, to which I welcome you all. Bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Desha, for those very energetic and warm-hearted welcome words to all of us. This is very much thanked. And also thank you very much to Mr. Tadeo and to Mr. Auguste for their welcome words on behalf of TAFISA and AUSC. As all of our three welcome speakers have explained, this webinar on gender equity in sport for all is a first event within a series of various webinars, which will be brought to you in the following weeks and months. In those webinars, we will focus on exploring and understanding the state of play in various topics which are close to sport for all and for the development of sport for all in Africa, as well as in the various regions of Africa. Back to today. To achieve today's objectives, we have set up a diverse program and gathered a number of speakers that will share their insights on the topic of gender equity in sport for all. To start with, we will have Ms. Keri McDonald, TAFISA Business Development Manager, who will give us an introduction on the topic Gender Equity in Sport for All, Participation, Empowerment, Leadership. Following her intervention, Mrs. Nonhlanhla Nzuza, Senior Sport Officer for Development for the AUSC, and Mrs. Carol Garoes, Vice President of AWISA, will have the hard job to set the stage and highlight what is the status quo, what are the opportunities to foster gender equity and in sport for all in Africa. We will then have Mr. Stanley Mutoya, CEO of AUSC Region 5, who will showcase what practical solutions his region and his organization have put in place to activate girls and women throughout his region and exemplify how action can turn to benefits. After this first three presentations, we will already open the floor for some questions to allow debate with all participants, before then finishing with a round table where the 5 representatives of the 5 various regions of AWISA and AUSC will reflect on what is the state of play in their regions, and so that we can learn a little bit from the differences which are existing in Africa. And we will finally end up with questions and answers once again with all the participants. So we hope that this program is attractive to you. And this is now enough for me. To start with, I would like to call to the floor Mrs. Keri McDonald, TAFISA Business Development Manager. Keri, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jean-Francois, and thank you to the really interesting and inspiring welcome words that we had already. So as Jean-Francois rightly said, my name is Keri McDonald. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So today I'm going to be briefly touching upon gender equity in sport for all and 3 important elements: participation, empowerment, and leadership. The aim of this 15-minute short presentation is really to try and provide some food for thought, provide some knowledge, information alongside areas for reflection. So just very briefly, for those who do not know TAFISA, who are we? We're the leading international sport for all organization. We have a vision, which is for a better world through sport for all. We have a mission, which is to lead the global sport for all movement. And we do this through 4 focus areas: providing networking and experience sharing opportunities, supporting sustainable sport for all and physical activity practices, supporting member development, lobbying internationally for sport for all and physical activity. A very quick glimpse at the TAFISA world shows that we're a member-focused organization. We're now up to approximately 370 members in 170 countries worldwide. Our members are a real eclectic mix, ranging from national Olympic committees, governments, intergovernmental bodies, national sport for all umbrella organizations, international federations, NGOs, etc. And we also work alongside other change makers, and we have regional bodies to focus on specific continental needs, including TAFISA Africa. So the overarching theme for today's presentation is based around TAFISA Mission 2030 for a better world through sport for all. This was adopted by our General Assembly during the TAFISA World Congress in Seoul in 2017. And this is an action-oriented guiding document for a global strategy to fight the worldwide physical inactivity epidemic. Mission 2030 is the global sport for all's answer to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and it introduces 12 key themes and critical issues. It introduces, through 12 key themes, critical issues and missions to combat these challenges, and ways in which we can use sport for all to achieve a better world by 2030 for the next generations to enjoy. So as you can see here, the themes range from peace development partnership, play and physical literacy, active cities, etc. As the leader of the global sport for all movement, TAFISA really calls on all of our members, our stakeholders and change makers at local, national, international level to take action alongside us, as we simply cannot tackle these large-scale global issues alone. And we cannot achieve our mission by 2030 alone. So within each of the 12 themes, the mission contains a concise description of the contribution that sport for all can and will make towards solving critical global challenges, and how best we can work together to collectively make this effective change. So if we look at gender equality, the vision statement is that by 2030, women, men, girls, boys will all have equal access, opportunities, and respect. How do we use sport for all to do this? Well, by implementing gender equity policies, promoting and supporting female and male sports equally, and encouraging girls to participate and removing negative language, negative approaches, negative practices. I do want to briefly touch upon 2 other Mission 2030 themes, as it's important to consider the intersectionality If we really want to close this gender gap that's existing, then we must acknowledge that every female has a unique experience of discrimination and oppression. And there's many factors that marginalize people. Gender is one, but so is sexual orientation, race, socioeconomic status, ability, etc. So here we have social inclusion with a vision that in 2030, all migrants, refugees, minorities, all levels of ability, gender and sexual orientation are understood, they're welcome, they're appreciated, and they're integrated. How do we use Sport for All to do this? We really must recognize the power of sport for social inclusion. Use it as that globally recognized powerful tool that it is, through encouraging and enabling participation of all people and working with governments to find opportunities to build bridges using sport. The third theme that I want to touch upon is peace development and partnership, which has a vision that in 2030, children are born into safe environments, a culture of tolerance and peace. We can achieve this using Sport for All by committing to contributing to achieving the SDGs in areas around the world. We can come together to share, support, and act for the benefit of all people and share knowledge and resources with others. So how can you, as members and leaders of the global Sport for All movement, support TAFISA in achieving our mission by 2030? This can be done by signing the endorsement statement for political leverage of the mission, by adopting the mission as a framework and guideline for action, by sharing your work. We all know that what's successful in one organization, one sports club, one community or country should be made available to others, especially to support each other as we move through our Sport for All journey. We encourage that you support one another, you share your experiences between actors, countries and regions to lead each other and to really build each other's motivation in this aspect. Use your voice and your platform and speak up for the movement, stay connected, and of course, act. One of the strongest things you can do is to lead by example. So now let's focus on gender equity and how we, as actors within the Sport for All movement, can work together to achieve success. So as you're aware, the theme of the webinar today is based around 3 elements for consideration. We have participation, empowerment, and leadership. So let's look at participation first. Across the Sport for All movement, regardless of what organization you are, what your role is, what region you are operating within, gender differences do exist when it comes to the rate of participation and also the range of opportunities to get involved. So how can we change this? Well, first of all, we need all sectors to acknowledge Sport for All as a lever for achieving more equitable societies. When we talk about participation, this is not restricted to those girls and women that are undertaking sport and physical activities. There still exists a huge disparity between men and women in policy making and decision making roles. We must collectively break down the structural barriers which are built on discriminatory norms and institutional practices. We need to break them down and then we have to rebuild them. This is very important. Girls and women should not be pigeonholed. The opportunities must be there in order for them to undertake them. We need to create the opportunities, we need to create the pathways so that they can actually be undertaken. As a member of the Sport for All movement, you should be asking yourself, are there enough female faces around you in your organization? Who are the role models for the next generations? And don't forget that Sport for All has wider societal benefits. Use this to your advantage to build partnerships and collaborative practices with other departments, other organizations, other sectors. So these are all factors for consideration to make your Sport for All environment more inclusive for girls and women. Advocate for equal representation. If pathways are not currently existing, then create them. Create a gender equity friendly environment where girls and women feel safe, they feel comfortable, they feel valued, they feel involved. Emphasize the support network and the supportive culture. This is key, especially for those that may be missing supportive structures in other parts of their life. Offer alternative formats and adapt them if necessary. We don't need to stick with traditional methods of doing things. It's okay to go against the grain and offer something alternative. It's very important to include the opinions and the experiences of females in the planning and the designing of the activities. Inspire girls and women with real stories and real role models which they can relate to. Offer positive reinforcement and set realistic goals, especially regarding milestones for the journey, so that they're able to internalize the process that they are making within whatever capacity it is in the Sport for All movement, and they can see that progression, and then they feel empowered from within. And most importantly, make it a fun, enjoyable, and positive experience. We don't want to lose girls and women at the very start of their journey, because we know that once we have that opportunity to engage, if we fail, if it does not work, it's very hard for the re-engagement. So if we move on to empowerment, this is a word that is so often used, but it's very seldomly defined. And the reason for this is because it doesn't have a straightforward definition. Empowerment can really be interpreted in many ways, and it's different to everyone. However, Professor Mandel wrote that female empowerment should be defined in 5 separate categories: social, educational, economic, political, and psychological. So how can we empower girls and women across the Sport for All movement? Well, by increasing access to networks to strengthen social ties and community engagement, to utilize proven methods that have worked in the past, mentoring, training, awareness raising, campaign, etc. By designing opportunities specifically for girls and women and not including them as an afterthought. We should listen to girls and women's voices. Ultimately, they know best what is right for them and what is the right pathway for them. Design and encourage transitions from Sport for All through to other parts of society with education, employment, life development, for example, and with the appropriate and effective support structures in place. And finally, we should all be actively encouraging and promoting women to stand for leadership positions and paving the way and breaking down the barriers that allow them to do so. I'm very conscious of the time, but I do want to quickly mention the Female Leaders of Tomorrow programme, which is a project co-funded by the European Commission and led by TAFISA, the African Union Sports Council Region 5, the European Network of Sport Education, and the Slovenian National Olympic Committee. This project is one in which we are equipping 20 young women from 4 countries in Europe and the 10 most southern countries in Africa with the necessary skills, knowledge, support, and experience to lead the global Sport for All movement. We're doing this through mobility and mentorship, and we've created mentoring trios whereby we have paired one African mentee with a European mentee, and then they have a mentor from either Africa or Europe. And I know that we have some of the mentors and the mentees in the session today, which is great. For very obvious reasons, this has been a very difficult year to start a mobility program. However, we are adapting as much as possible and providing online training as much as we can. And I think I can speak on behalf of all of the partners when I say we truly want this to not be a tokenistic effort. And it's very important for us that at the end of this project, we can confidently say, here are the next 20 female leaders of the Sport for All movement. Okay, the last element I want to touch upon is leadership. I've mentioned leadership in participation and empowerment, which shows that everything is interconnected, everything has a link. But I want to briefly touch upon some important points to consider. So are you conscious of whose style of leadership you are learning from? Who are the leaders? Who are you presenting as the leaders within your community, within your organization? It's important to reflect upon this and see where what interpretation of leadership you are presenting to others. Leadership and governance must provide unconditional support to create clear pathways from policy to practice. Decisions must be made with a gender equity mindset in order to achieve true success. We really don't want gender equity, gender equality, or female empowerment to be buzzwords or tokenistic gestures. If you're not an expert in gender equity, then simply turn to those that are. Internal cultures with prevailing traditional masculine leadership styles are certainly hindering progression within gender equity. How can we change this? We must all think what we can do with it in our own capacity to challenge this. Gender bias is also detrimental to equity. However, leaders have no gender. The true beauty of leadership is that there's a variety of diverse styles and approaches, and the most successful and healthy leadership style is actually a balanced leadership with varying qualities in practice. Therefore, we should celebrate these differing qualities and characteristics and use them to our advantage. I really advise that we use disruptive tools such as the media to listen to a variety of voices. It's more powerful than listening to one. And finally, it's important to nurture, recognize, and acknowledge the leadership capacities of girls and women. Studies show time and time again that many women in leadership positions think about leaving, or they do leave, as a result of an unsupportive environment and lack of respect or value to their contribution. This is all of our responsibility to address this and make positive change. Very quickly, I am very conscious of the time. When we think about leaders, this is not only people. Leaders in the Sport for All movement include people, strategies, policies, organizations, communities, countries, etc. There are great policies existing, which you can see on the presentation at the moment. All these policies are working towards closing this gender gap, coming from the United Nations, the WHO, European Commission, IWG, Women in Sport. And it's important that we turn to these leaders for their guidance and their support. Very quickly, my conclusion, this is just some key points that I hope you can take out of today. Number one, be bold. Don't be afraid to discuss and tackle sensitive topics. It has to be done. Look internally within your organization at how you're viewed in terms of gender equity. Make the necessary changes and lead by example. Build your network. Think about where and who to mobilize. Everyone has a place. Everyone has a seat around this table, and it's just about building on each other's strengths. Support is key across all levels of your organization, right from the top with the policy making, the decision making, down to the implementation. We must work together. There must be very clear pathways. From the previous slide, you saw these excellent policies, but we must get them into action. And continuous research, you know, what was maybe relevant or topical 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 6 months ago, might not necessarily be relevant today. Very last comment, always make sure that you're continuously monitoring, evaluating, and making changes as and when necessary. Thank you for listening. I know it was a lot of information, but I hope that you were able to take something out of this presentation.
Thank you very much, Keri, for this very powerful introduction to today's topic on gender equity in sport for all, participation, empowerment, and leadership. So I think this really provides us with a good base and background, and it makes also a good link to our next two presenters, who will be Mrs. Nonhlanhla and Nzuza from AUSC and Mrs. Garoes from AWISA, because our next two speakers, based on this common understanding, will inform us, will reflect a little bit on what is the status quo in gender equity in sport for all in Africa. Before I pass to them the floor, please remember that you can use the chat at any time to write any questions or comments that you may have. We will use those questions when we open the floor a little bit later to transfer the questions to the various speakers. So please make use of the chat for any questions you have later. Mrs. Nzuza, please, the word is yours from AUSC for our next presentation.
Thank you, Francois. Members of the Executive Committee of TAFISA, AWISA, representatives from different international organizations, government representatives, experts in the field of sport, and all the other distinguished participants. Good morning and good afternoon to those of you that are in the Central Africa or East African time zone. My name is Nonhlanhla Nzuza. I'm the Senior Sports Officer for Development and AUSC, which stands for African Union Sports Council. We are a specialized technical office of the African Union, and we are based in Yaoundé, Cameroon. Okay, we can start, Keri. Next slide. Okay. No, the first one, sorry. First one, Keri. Okay, as we all know, the purpose of this webinar is to address gender inequalities by discussing the 3 pillars, which is participation, sorry guys, Keri is controlling the slides, so that's why there's a bit of communication breakdown. So that we ensure that there's fairness and justice in distributing of benefits, responsibilities in sports for all opportunities in the continent. And one of our responsibilities as stipulated in the statutes of the AUSC is to promote, advocate a culture of gender equality in the domain of sports. Achieving gender equality, equity, and women empowerment is a critical success factor for realizing the African Union Agenda 2063. We all know that sports empowers, and over the last decade, sport has been a tool for empowering youth in developing countries. However, opportunities to participate have favored the males in the continent. Next slide. The newly revised policy framework, which my colleague Robert presented on in the beginning, talks about 5 distinct pillars, which are Active Africa, Winning Africa, Innovative, and United Africa. And it is our responsibilities as AUSCs to ensure that gender balance is adhered to. And under Active Africa, we have chosen key priority areas, which we're going to be promoting and facilitating in the continent. And that is enhancing quality physical education, and sports for girls in schools, and also promoting, supporting participation in physical activities and healthy lifestyles for girls and women. Promote and facilitate and ensure that there's mental health and well-being for female athletes and the general population. And then under the pillar Sustainable Africa, we promote and facilitate good governance and sports integrity, and also make sure that gender equality and empowerment is advancing in the continent. Next slide. Under Winning Africa, we promote and facilitate long-term localized coach education and development for female coaches, long-term localized female athletes development, ensure that delivery of provincial, national, and continental competitions which are suitable for females, promote and facilitate high-performance programs for talented elite athletes. The gender equality hurdles in sports for all in the continent are issues such as leadership. We realize that there's not enough females in leadership positions in the continent, especially when it comes to sports structures, whether it's at member state level, continental level, and also there's a big shortage in decision-making females in sports for all ecosystem in the continent. There's also issues of visibility, participation. As much as participation has increased in the continent in the last decade, but we've realized that there's still a huge gap between males and females in terms of participation in sport, whether it's your local sports at a wide level or regional or provincial or national level, but there's still a big gap, even in competitions, like in competitive sports. participation is not good. Even at recreational level, we don't have a lot of participants that are female. There's also a big gap in terms of inclusion. We find that female athletes with disabilities hardly participate in sports for all activities. There's another element of safety, where in Africa, there's always that safety aspect that hinders female participation in sports. Yeah, and then the big one is resource mobilization. Which is funding, could be funding, investments, sponsorships. You find that it's not only an African problem, it's also a world problem. Sorry. Government male teams, and when it comes to it, and also investments from private sector, full of competitive sport, which is football. Man United, Liverpool, they don't put the same resources in their female teams as they do with their male teams. There's issues of sponsorships. You find that male sponsors, they get money from Nike or Adidas, but when it comes to females, it's all about giving them free takes or the latest soccer boots or whatever. So I don't know what's causing it, but they say that in terms of revenue, the females will not bring in as much revenue as males, which is a sexist statement. Yeah, that needs to change. Next slide. Okay, recommended strategy. We need to promote gender equality in political and economic life, particularly in employment matters. We need to promote equal participation and representation for women in decision making levels, ensure that all women have the opportunity to participate in sports in a safe environment, promote female leadership, including increasing the number of women coaches and women in decision-making positions, provide education, training and development programs that address gender equality. Next slide, Keri. The system seems to be very slow.
I think you're having some connectivity issues, and there's maybe a delay, and we're struggling to hear you a little bit, to be honest.
Okay, I think we have a connection issue, unfortunately, with Miss Nzuza from AUSC in Cameroon. I think that she was anyways at the end of her presentation, and I would like to suggest that we now move to our next speaker, who will complement the words of Miss Nzuza by setting the stage and status quo in Africa. So it is now my pleasure to call to the floor Mrs. Garoes, who is Vice President of the African Women in Sport Association. Mrs. Garoes, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see there's still Mr. Nzuza, AUS, on the screen, on my screen. Your Excellencies, the Chairperson and Your Excellencies, all protocols observed in assistance.
We can hear you. Please go forward.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. It's because I wasn't seeing. I was still seeing Nzuza. I'll go straight to my presentation, setting the stage, status quo and opportunities in Africa. Status quo. For 22 years, AWISA has been participating in change and facing the challenges of change. We have succeeded establishing women participation in sports in our respective countries and throughout much of Africa at the national, regional, and international levels. We have also succeeded in creating opportunities for sport participation across different age groups, from 7 years of age to senior adults. This is true in many urban areas and some rural areas as well. More specifically, we have succeeded in creating a Women in Sport organization, AWISA, in order to drive our agenda, which was admitted to the then SACA in 1999. We also succeeded in creating structures in the then 7 zones of the OAU, sport structures. We have now succeeded in creating women in sport structures in the 5 regions of the AUSC sport structures. Women have been involved in sport and physical activities related to sport for centuries. We have also succeeded in linking issues of sport participation with increased political enfranchisement, women's health, reduction of violence against women, and economic empowerment of the same group. We carry our country's flags. However, it is a known factor that in spite of women participation in sport activities at every level, carrying their country's flags for victory laps as they circle the arena, breaking boundaries and setting new world records, women still remain unseen or unheard of after they retire from active participation in sport as athletes. Despite all achievements by women in sport activities, women are still given second priority, particularly in leadership. Women continue to face discrimination and marginalization, both subtle and blatant. The COVID-19 pandemic has provided its own unique challenges to our already beleaguered systems of health, education, employment, agriculture, production, and overall infrastructure of our various countries. Many have to make critical decisions to stay in place and die, or face the possibility of COVID infection in order to live. What is certain is that those who were already at the margins of our society and those at the bottom of our system suffer most. So the challenge before us to see how we can make a difference in the lives and cultures in sport for our peoples, particularly in rural areas. Our mandate is clear, using the very important 3 pillars, participation, empowerment, and leadership, to make a difference in the lives of our women and nations. This requires foot soldiers. Opportunities. Today, we have a unique opportunity to reflect, discuss, plan, and envisage how we can promote women in sport in our various cultures of sport for all. In fact, we need to see how best we can place women in sport agenda as a permanent component in sport for all to participate. Participation of women at every level of decision-making is critical. Africa has over 1.26 billion people, and of this number, significantly are young people. In fact, 41% are younger than the ages of 15, of which over 250 million are girls. This is an enormous potential this continent has.
Event or international.
Can you imagine over 200 million girls empowered through sport to be their best? This is our present. The values, discipline, competitiveness, focus, and cooperation they learn in sport will be immediately transferred to other aspects of their lives, like participation, empowerment, and leadership. Women must participate at every level of decision-making, as women and girls constitute a large percentage of the population, significant numbers. Also, the contributions we potentially can make to the overall economy and society must be realized. The second pillar is empowerment. One may ask, why does empowerment matter so much? Why now? Why is our gathering so significant? We have a lot at stake, and our very future depends on what we do to plan and promote a better world for women and girls as a whole. This agenda of empowerment demands dedication in order to make a difference within our member states. Our culture must be fashioned to represent the true reflection of what is happening on the ground and rich traditions which must be interlinked with the participation in sport for all in a way that is relevant and empowering. Sport is a unique activity with tremendous appeal and power. At least best, sport can involve a large segment of our societies, from children to adults, men and women alike. It transcends economic boundaries and cultures. It has its own language and values. The third pillar is leadership. We must develop structures that foster the development of leadership among girls and women. We must create systems where we mentor our girls and women, give them skills that build on the values and foundations they learn in playing sport, and let them know there is no limit to what they can accomplish. We must create opportunities where they can bring their unique perspectives, visions, skills, and at the national, regional, and international levels. Sport provides various opportunities from health to development and basic human rights, which unfortunately are still not accessible to our less fortunate rural majority, including women and girls. This is a tragic situation which must be addressed through all channels available to us, as it is part of the formulation of leadership. One key to unlock our potential as a group is to address these three important topics: participation, empowerment, and leadership, through our national women in sport associations, 5 AWISA regional structures, governments, and all other partners, foot soldiers. We need to objectively revisit how we understand, view participation in sport for all in relation to the 3 topics. Our culture of participation, empowerment, leadership must be freed from any aspects that demeans, delimits, and marginalize other parts of our societies. There are some of the few concrete actions we can take to make a difference and be more proactive, particularly in the area of accountability in sport for all, and reduce these glaring gender gaps, particularly in leadership. Colleagues, we must strengthen existing structures to achieve our goals The onus is upon us to face the challenges to make a difference which can be felt in our communities, both rural and urban communities. We must take the opportunity to use existing platforms to articulate our roles and mandate, and above all, strengthen our relationships with our partnerships to realize our vision. This places a direct challenge to all of us. It is time to move away from status quo strategies to action, as we are about to make another historic milestone opportunity of being part of this dynamic gathering. With that having said and done, I would like to say thank you to the two partners for this opportunity. I thank you all. God bless.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garoes, for this very inspiring speech. And I would like to tag along the last words that you have said, that it is time to move away from status quo strategies to action. We have now had 3 inspiring presentations who have highlighted what are the gaps, the challenges we are facing in increasing gender equity in sport for all. And I'm happy that our next speaker, who is Mr. Stanley Mutoya, CEO of AUSC Region 5, will look at action and how from strategies and policies, his region, Region 5 of Africa, has taken action to increase gender equity in sport for all. So Mr. Mutoya, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jean-François. Can you just allow me to share? It's saying that
yes,
I'm disabled.
It should be fine now.
Okay, thank you. It's a very good morning to all of you. Good afternoon, good evening to some because of our time differences. And allow me to observe all the protocols for all the dignitaries that are in our midst this morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on wherever we are. I want to thank also the partners to this very important African webinar, the first that we have had, which I want to believe is the first of many more that will come in the area of women empowerment, gender mainstreaming, as well as empowerment, leadership, and capacity development of women and girls in Africa. I always tell people that they call this Africa, we call it home. So we need to ensure that the home is the real home with mothers and girls that take their responsibilities. I'm aware that we have very little time, and I have got the privilege to present practical solutions to inclusion of women, moving from policy, from strategy, from talk to action, and an experience of how we have done it in Region 5. I'm going to talk a little bit faster, and my apologies to some colleagues that are not very proficient in English. I will try as much as possible to ensure that I highlight only those points that I think are salient. I would also think that you can be able to read what is on my slide, so I will not read exactly what is there. One of the things that I would like us to all agree from the starting point is that even at United Nations level, sport, including sport for all, becomes a fundamental human right. It is a right for everyone, no matter the gender, the color, the creed, the ability or disability. We all have a right, fundamental right for that. And men and women are equal human beings. And as such, we, in all our spheres, positions, and stations, need to ensure that everybody is treated with equality, everybody is treated with dignity. And we also may not argue much if we may want to say that healthy women lead to productive nations, because healthy women also are the hubs, I call it the nexus of any economic transformation of any country. If our women are healthy, they also raise children that are healthy, they also raise children that are responsible citizens, and that is even better for us. So I'm going to address in my presentation here what we as Region 5 have tried to do in ensuring that we move from policy, from rhetoric to activity, and ensuring that there's practical activities regarding women and gender inclusion. Let's start from a policy point of view. In 2016, we did review our constitution. Our constitution did not have a specific provision that made a very deliberate statement around women. And now we do have Article 16 in our constitution that says at least one of the 3 members of our executive committee members from each country. Our executive committee members are directors of sport, CEOs and chairpersons of sports commissions. And the constitution now says one of these 3 must be a woman. In the unlikely event that there is no woman among the 3, there must be a woman board member, either the vice chair or one of the senior executive members of the sports commission who is a woman. That must be a member of the executive committee. And that is a position from our policy. In our Region 5 games, we've got a 50-50 ratio. We insist, and it also creates a lot of issues for us. We insist that if a country is entering teams, there has to be an equal number of teams for women and for boys and girls. And we only allow a 10% variance on either side. Either there should be 60% women teams and 40% men, or maybe in the likely event that has to happen 60% boys and 40% girls, and not more than that. We also have a budget for the last 2 years now going forward, a budget for women capacity development of $25,000 annually. That is channeled towards women development through the grants that we provide for the Women Leadership Program, so that we also ensure that we are not just talking, but we support as well. We have come up, and our ministers last year, November, the 8th of November, to be precise, 2019, in Lesotho, they did approve our safe sport policy, which is talking about us having rights-based policies in our countries, so that issues to do with harassment and all other abuses are not only reported, but they are dealt with. So there is an issue of reporting. There's an issue as well of ensuring that perpetrators are dealt with. We have a zero tolerance to harassment code of conduct at policy level, at every level. And this is also a part of what our statement of ensuring that there's intent, especially as we go towards our Region 5 games that are scheduled for Maseru, Lesotho. They were supposed to be this year. We're now having them next year. At strategy level, we have an equity and inclusion priority area in our strategy plan, and our target is to attain 40% increase in sport and sport for all by 2028. And we will talk about what we are doing to attain that. We also have got, as part of our strategy, partnerships and collaborations with other like-minded parties, and TAFISA is one of them. You just heard in the opening remarks that we have a very cordial relationship with TAFISA. We have also a regional structure for women in sport. We do have amongst us here, and I must mention that we have over 50 participants from 9 of our member countries in this webinar, and some of them are also members of our regional women in sport structures. A regional women in sport work plan is in place, also coming out of a research that we did conduct. And so our activities, the 4 of them in the 4 priority areas of our action plan, as a result of research that has been conducted. What about on skills? We do have regional education sports accreditation system. We believe in building people for innovation and excellence, and in particular, women and our girls. So a lot of education that is run, customized short courses, management development programs, certified leadership course that I must say we did run one from July into September with a lot of women as well, biased towards women to ensure that we have more opportunities for women. What about on our programs? A number of them: Women Leadership Program, the Woman for Women, Female Leaders of Tomorrow, which my colleague and friend Keri has talked about, the COC that I raised just now. We have introduced the e-fitness every Friday at 6:30. If you go on our Facebook page, we will be live running through women and e-fitness aerobic sessions. A morning doctor led by a woman doctor as well, every Wednesday at 10 o'clock, talking about mainly health and safety issues, but we also talk women matters. And we are in the middle right now of organizing a second Women in Sport conference that will be run in October, November of next year, after a very successful Gaborone conference we had. I'll just touch a little bit on some of these programs. Our Women Leadership Program, which is run now in 9 of our 10 member countries. It was being run in 6 countries, and we just did reading just last week of the other 3 countries that were not yet running. This is South Africa, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe. And now we are only left with Angola. The idea is to train 200 women per year, and by 2028, our target is to have trained 2,000 women, because one of the arguments given by some people is that there are no women that are willing to take up positions of leadership. And so we are ensuring that there is empowerment and training of those women, so that there is no argument around why there are no women. This is a Woman for Women program that we are bringing now, where we're saying one woman reaches and recruits 4 women. That is why we're calling it Woman for Women. And this woman becomes an influencer, gets 4 women, and each of these 4 women, which are in the first generation, will also recruit 4 other women. And it goes on like that up to the 4th generation at country level. And so we are saying one woman must bring 4 more. And that's why it's our punchline is 1 for more. 10 influencers per country, 136,400 women that we expect at the end of every year. And we are looking at reaching about 500,000 women in the next 3 years. That's a huge target that we have, because we are moving towards just discussing in boardrooms and getting real issues on the ground to get women to be involved at every level. They want to walk, they want to play football, they want to play whatever activities they want to be involved in. They have to be able to do that within their communities without cost. This one, Keri, my friend, has already talked about already, women between the ages of 18 and 30, and we are looking at connecting continents and also bringing in the cultural aspect of it. When you look at things like our cultural exchanges, within our Region 5 games, 20 schools that are involved, 10 from one school from each of our member countries plus 10 in the host countries, 200 teachers involved, up to 10,000 children that are involved in there, and over 600,000 of these being girls, so that we also ensure that our cultural heritage is preserved. A number of awareness and advocacy areas that I mentioned earlier, the Morning Doctor, the conference, the Work for Life, which is also part of our partnership with TAFISA, which also leads to the World Working Day. So what have been some of the challenges we've experienced as a region? And some of them are not peculiar to the region only, and you may also identify with them. Issues of cultural barriers, we can never talk enough about that. They are there. Patriarchal societies, you know, what we call attitudes for altitude, where we have patriarchal societies where women are not really given priority in terms of running activities. But also among women themselves, we call it the PHD, the pull her down syndrome, where women don't support each other. And that is a key challenge that we continue to face. There is low prioritization of sport, even in terms of budgets at country level. And unfortunately, the COVID-19 has brought in huge challenges as well this year. And obviously that has led to some serious competition for resources. There have been gaps as well in this region. There's a gap in research. A lot of the programs that are happening, most of them may not be based by empirical evidence. There's been dysfunctional structures. And I need right now even to challenge AWISA and say that we need to challenge ourselves and say, if we have representatives in each region, what are the constituencies that they support? Are they functional organs, even right at member state level? So there is a gap in that area. There's a gap in capacity, there's a gap in resource prioritization, and also goal incongruence that we continue to see. But also the biggest gap is donor syndrome, where we then see a lot of member states and women groups and activities relying on donations. But there have been a lot of opportunities too that we have experienced as a region. The global and continental policies, if you look at the UN SDGs, SDG 5, SDG 3, which talk about gender equality, SDG 5 and 3 talks about good health and well-being. You look at the Agenda 2063 of the AU, you look at the Kazan Action Plan, you look at the policy of the AU that my colleagues Nzuza and Robert talked about. There is a lot, including Helsinki, plus the big 5, Gaborone IWG resolutions. All these present opportunities for us to explore in terms of driving women in sport agenda. There is also global partners, and we are proud to have such partners here. TAFISA, the United Nations agencies, the African Union, and other regional economic communities. They provide a lot of opportunities that we can also explore. But also such experiences like now, where COVID-19 comes on board, and it presents an opportunity where we are reaching out to over 200 people that we are here globally, and that is an opportunity we want to explore. And we have taken such opportunities as Region 5. We have had also a number of our webinars, and like I said, we'll be having our own conference running through. But also national and global priorities. When you look at health for all, active cities, peace and nation building, all these provide opportunities that we have embraced as a region so that we are able to run through. Let me finish by challenging everyone that is here, that you need to aspire to inspire others before you inspire yourself. Thank you and have a pleasant conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mutoya, for this very inspiring presentation and showing us how Region 5 has been putting policy into action. We are now coming to an end of this first part of our webinar. And before we open the floor for questions, I would like to ask my colleague Keri McDonald to open a question which we would like to ask to all of you through sharing her screen. This question is, in one word, according to you, what is needed to achieve gender equity in sport for all? And this is a question that we are asking to all of the participants here on the floor. Please go on your web browser to www.menti.com and use the code that you can see on the screen, 2403927. I will also write the code and the link in the chat so that you can have access to it. We hope to have inspiring comments from you on this platform and to see a bit later in the webinar how this, what are all the answers which you have given to us. So www.menti.com on your browser, and the password is 2403927. We look forward to seeing what are your answers, and at the end of the webinar, we'll come back to this to see what you have told us. Thank you very much, Keri, for this. Before we move to the roundtable, I see that there are a few questions in the panel. We can take a few of them, unfortunately not too many due to time restriction, but the first question is coming from Mrs. Chiara Volonté. She is the Vice President of the International Chukball Federation, and she's asking how we can, whether in Region 5, whether you practice any mixed gender team sport, practice or play, which is an interesting approach indeed to include people. So maybe a question for Mr. Mutoya.
Sorry, Jean-François, I didn't really get the question.
Do you practice in Region 5 and do you incentivize mixed gender team sport? So girls and women playing with boys and men.
Okay, in our Region 5 games, we don't have sports yet that have mixed gender, but within our sport for all activities at country level, we do have a number of such in different countries where there are mixed activities for sport for all within the member countries. However, in our innovation hub direction, we are already engaging with the Global Esports Federation, and we'll be seeing introduction of such. There will be, if all goes well, in Lesotho 2021, we'll be having some exhibition sports for such, and watch this space, and we'll be doing that very soon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mutoya. And in the same line, we have a question from Mrs. Fatimat Olafusi. Considering tradition and culture, specifically in Africa, how can mixed gender team among adults be implemented? Maybe a question that could address to Mrs. Sheila Desha, Mrs. Carol Garoes, or Mrs. Nzuza, if some of you like to react to this. I don't know whether Mrs. Garoes, Nzuza, yes, please.
Sorry, Franz, I did not get the question. What was the question?
The question is, considering tradition and culture, specifically in Africa, how can mixed gender team among adults be implemented?
Sure, that's a tough question. I think it's just a matter of, addressing the importance, to those people that are so-called cultural, to understand that there's nothing wrong with mixing boys and girls and having them playing together. It's also part of social cohesion. It's just trying to make them understand that there's no harm. Yeah, that's my contribution. It's a tough one.
Perhaps I may want to add there, Jean-François, if I may, it is very possible because some of the key cultural barriers relate to proximity between adult men and women. things like contact sport, things like sharing of facilities, whether it's change rooms and so on. And so those can be managed very easily. And I think I must say that TAFISA showed us how possible that can be in the World Walking Day, where it was men and women, girls and boys, everybody being involved. So I think away from that, you see that there are also some sport codes, volleyball being one, even basketball, others, judo and so on, that are trying to move towards getting more mixed teams. The IOC through the Youth Olympics has also showed us that it is possible even at youth level. And so we need to move towards that because we have to tolerate each other. I don't think in our homes, we've got toilets that are labeled men and women. We use the same bathrooms at home, ourselves, our daughters, ourselves, and our siblings do that. So why should it be different when we go outside? So we have a role as leaders to break some of these myths and ensure that society begins to accept that we can all live together. But let's not lose sight that there are vouchers out there, and sorry for me using such a hard a term like that. There are people who are ready to pounce and abuse our girls, our girl children, our women, and we cannot lose sight of that. So we have to take precautions, which is why we have to take nice and slow steps before we can really go full out. I think that is very important. We have to be very cautious so that we don't live to regret when we then get cases of people being harassed, abused, and also perhaps even injured in the process.
Thank you, Mr. Mutoya, for this answer. I can take a last question, which I see on the chat before we move forward. There is a question coming from Mrs. Felicity Ramarica, who is Vice President at the NOC in Rwanda. Her question is, what is being done to encourage women in leadership positions? If there are any further insight that can be given by one of our speakers.
For fear of dominating, I was a bit hesitant. But I think you heard that through the partnership that we have with TAFISA, we are running the Female Leaders of Tomorrow program, the FLOAT program, as part of capacity development. We are running training programs, COC, to develop sport for all leaders in our various constituencies. I mentioned the management development programs. I mentioned changes to our statutes and policies and strategies and so on. And I think what we need is also to do such. And not only that, go further into school sport. I see Professor Gosling is here. ICSPE is also working around matters to do with quality physical education. It must start from that level as well to ensure that there is training and awareness that is provided. Let me throw a question again, Jean-François, very quickly and say, most of the times we see ourselves and most women focus more on activism, which is more, for me, a little bit on the aggressive side. What we need is the softer side of things, education, awareness, advocacy, so that society can change its attitudes, because a lot of the things are based on attitude. But training can never be overemphasized. There's a lot of training that is required. There's a lot of also affirmative action that is required, knowing that women and girls have always been disadvantaged. So there has to be some affirmative action in terms of leadership, in terms of positions that we have. Like I mentioned earlier on, our statutes must change to accommodate women, knowing that women have been disadvantaged in the past. You cannot have an elephant and a rabbit running a 100-meter race from the same starting point, because those are two different animals altogether. So affirmative action is also the way to go for us to ensure that we are sincere on matters of gender equality and equity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mutoya, for this thorough answer. We will have to close the question for now due to a lack of time. I see that there are many more in the chat as well as comments. We will be able to come back to them towards the end of the workshop with another questions and answers session. But before we move to the roundtable, I would like to ask Keri to open again the page on menti.com, because quite some of you have already answered to our question, and I would like to see how this looks like at the moment. Thank you very much, Keri. So here's a word cloud that we are coming up with: education. Education seems to be one of the #1 words that comes up in what is needed to achieve gender equity in sport for all. I can read as well: opportunities, willpower, sympathy, determination, change, financial support, empowerment. Only 22 of you so far have answered. So if you like to connect once again on menti.com and use the password 2403927 and continue to answer in the next minutes, we can have another look to this word cloud towards the end of the webinar. So I have again posted the web link and the password in the chat. Please make use of it so that we can come back to it later. So thank you very much, Keri. Thank you very much to all of you for your question and the interesting debate. It is now like the time to open the next part of our webinar, which is a round table where we have invited the presidents of the 5 AWISA regions of Africa to share with us what is the situation in the different regions of Africa around our theme of today. We have with us Mrs. Sarah Lemgherbi, who is president of AWISA Region 1 and also assistant director of projects and major sports events in the Algerian Ministry of Youth and Sport. Mr. Mahmoud Lamin Jawala, president of AWISA Region 2, working at the Gambia National Sports Council. Mrs. Blanche Akouala, who is president of AWISA Region 3, also president of the Congolese Women in Sport Association. Mrs. Delta Horner-Ward, president of AWISA Region 4, and also chairperson of the Seychelles Women in Sport Association. And finally, Mrs. Ana Idalete Ferreira, please apologize for my pronunciation, president of AWISA Region 5, and also vice president of the Angola Women and Sport Association. So my question to all of you will be the following. What are the current states of play of gender equity in sport in your regions? Where are the gaps and the challenges that the women are facing, and what opportunities do we have at hand? We will start with Mrs. Sarah Lemgherbi, and I will kindly ask you to please respect the timing of your presentations. Mrs. Sarah Lemgherbi, the floor is yours. I think you are muted, Mrs. Lemgherbi. If you are with us, Mrs. Lemgherbi, I'm asking you to unmute. Yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello? You hear me?
Perfect.
Perfect. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm Sarah Lemgherbi from Algeria. I'm Deputy Director of Major Sport Event and Competition System from Ministry of Youth and Sport of Algeria, and also President of AWISA Region 1. Let me introduce my region. In application of the new architecture of sport in Africa set up by the Commission of the African Union, dividing the African continent to 5 regions, in which Region 1 comprising the 6 countries of North Africa in occurrence: Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Mauritania, and Sahrawi Republic Arabic. So, as you know, all sport has the power of to change lives, teaching women and girls to work as team, autonomy, resilience, and self-confidence. Sport is one of the main engines of gender equality. So, among problems handling the practice of sport for women and young girls, as you know, problems of accessibilities and quality of sport facilities, and an underrepresentation of women in technical and administrative management. Also, we have the rules of International Sport Institute concerning women more particularly. As you know, some sport, as you know, the problem for the Muslim women, so they cannot participate to all competition because some rules until days they have an specific equipment. So there is many directing in view to let that part of women to practice sport. And what we have come as a proposed solution for that for the access women in sport. We have the implementation of policy promoting the practice of sport for girls and women at all levels. Political action is a key element in the development of equal access for men and women to physical and sporting activities at all stages of their lives, regardless of their social condition and their ethno-cultural affiliation. In general, member states, public authorities, and the sport movement are therefore encouraged to consider the issue of women's access to sport and adopt relevant measures in this direction. An approach taken to empower women in decision-making position, the increase in the number of women in position of responsibility at the local level and within sport and youth members of the Algerian government. For example, I take the Algerian government, the appointment of former champion of Africa of judo, Mrs. Swakre Salima, in the position of Secretary of State in charge of elite sport within the Algerian Ministry of Youth and Sport. And also, for example, at the level of Region 1, allow me to outline the measures to be implemented in the fight for equality between women and men, in particular in the following areas. Women and decision-making institute mechanism working for the advancement of women. The integration of women into a position of responsibility and their involvement in decision-making has always been a major concern and a challenge for the youth and sports sector. We have also organic law relating to political parties working for democratic action and the alternance of power and the promotion of women's political rights. We have also the Constitution of 2016, Article 36. The state promotes equality between men and women in the labor market. And we have also the law of 2013 relating to the organization and development of physical and sporting activities, in particular Article 162 relating to the promotion and development of women's sport. And we have also Executive Decree number 1433 of November, fixing the operating modalities of sport federation, in particular in Articles 18, ensure the consecration of female representation within the bodies of the federation. Objective by the sector, the increase in the number of women occupying positions of responsibility at the local level and within sport and youth animation sector. On concrete example, as I said before, the members of the Algerian government, as I said, nomination of the former champion of Africa, Mrs. Swakri. This is a concrete example that the state of Algeria made to involve women in sport and in sport decision making. But it's only that is not enough. So we need more involved women at that position. Like for example, like I said before, we cannot find many women in the technical administration of technical administration. So we need, as I said, we all agree that sport contributes positively to the development of society. Also, we, the women and girls of the African continent, very grateful for the efforts made by member states, the sport movement, etc., for establishment of political and legal strategies in order to facilitate access to women in decision-making position or practicing sport activity at their convenience in all sincerity and happy. The reality on the ground is quite different. So we must, all the movement and the making decision must believe on the women and girls, and they need to express themselves, and they need to have the chance to lead that sport movement that we all women are part of. So we let us express ourselves and give us the opportunity to hear our voices and do what we know to do in that movement of sport. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Lemgherbi, for your intervention and very insightful presentation on what is the current situation in Region 1. We are now turning towards Region 2, and I would like to invite Mr. Mahmoud Lamin Jawala, President of AWISA Region 2, to take the floor. Please, Mr. Lamin Jawala, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, the chair. My name is Mahmoud Lamin Jawala, AWISA Region 2 President, and like to present on gender equity in sports for all, in Region 2. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. It is very important that we elaborate on the equity in sports for all, which is a very, very key issue that people around the world should look at and then take note of. And I will be dealing with 3 key issues, which is participation, empowerment, and leadership. And this will be focusing mainly on Region 2. Now, going directly to the areas or the issues, participation, women participation in sports in Region 2 still encounter formidable impediments. This varies from one country to another based on their level of belief in their traditions, religion, culture of their society. We understand that women, have faced a lot of problems when it comes to their participation in sports. They are not given the equal opportunity as men. This is very, very important. And if you look at Region 2, more than half of the population are women. If we want to attain, let's say, meaningful development in sports, the inclusion of women will be very much crucial in this in this endeavor. So it's important that participation of women is looked at very much. So you'll see to it that in our society, yes, there are exceptions, but you will see to it that it's a society which is very much attached to their cultures and beliefs. This, deprive women from participating fully into sports because they are seen as people who should be followers instead of leading. And it is also important to note that progress have been made over the years. But with all this, gender inequality in Region 2 in terms of, women participation in sports is very, very numerous. We have so many challenges that our women face. Next slide. Now, when it comes to empowerment, empowering women in sports industry in region 2, it's lacking. I will not say totally lacking, because there are some women who are into sports and are doing very well. But if you look at the ratio, men that are doing sports and the women that are also into sports and are empowered, men have dominated the industry. So it is important that we look at how we empower these women. How do we do this? Give them the opportunity to learn, to be educated and have their degrees, so that they will also play a very important role in the development of sports. You look at the West, women in sports are very much encouraged and empowered. And they have the same talent with our people in the regions here or in Africa. We can do the same thing. And equally, what men have in terms of knowledge, in terms of, capabilities, our women also have the same capability and the same capacity. But there is no empowerment. This is why we always see them behind. So empowering women in sports through a well-organized and structured entity, such as AWISA, can advocate for reforms for the empowerment of women through sports. In empowering them, we can encourage and help them establish their associations in our individual countries, so that their ministries or governments will give them the support. They lead their organizations, women in sports organizations, and then advocate for the empowerment of their own sisters, so that they will also be in the forefront in the development of sports. Now, coming to leadership, leadership in sports continues to be a male-dominated, entity in Africa, particularly region 2. The negative impact of our socio-cultural beliefs, becomes an obstacle to the women folks' attainment of leadership positions in sports. This belief, cuts across. Men traditionally, or based on our religion, we think women should be following men. They cannot lead. But time has come when it has, proven that women also have the capacity and the capability to lead. So you will see to it that it will be important if leadership roles are given to women, in our regions, in our countries, because looking at the women's leadership in sports, you will see to it that in many sports or disciplines, heads of clubs, heads of associations, most of the time, it is men that lead, those entities. Even football teams or basketball teams, which are which are female teams, their head coaches are men. If the head coach is female, the rest of the technical backup is all men. So you will see to it that there is no equity here. It is imbalance. The women should also be given that opportunity, so that there is the parity we're talking about, and then together we can have a better society or sports industry we are yearning for in our regions. And also it is important for us to give them the opportunity to lead their own associations. Like I said earlier, they can be encouraged and have women in sports associations in their communities, which will be led by women. Yes, it is important men to be part of it so that they can be supported. But I think it is very, very crucial for this issue to be looked at and give women the opportunity to lead. Because if you look at our society, women at home cares for our children. They give them the good morals. They teach them the values of our society, how important it is for our children to act on all those things. Now, somebody who is responsible of giving that to your future, I think the individual has the capacity to lead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jawala.
I want to, yes, I want to come to the strategies quickly. Advocate for the establishment of women in sports association in all the member states of the AU, enforce the AU gender equality policy in order to gain equal access to participation in sports for all, and encourage and empower women to take up leadership roles in sports entity. Advocate for women to own clubs and to a great extent head national and continental sports federations. Train more female coaches and administrators with attractive remunerations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jawala, for this great overview of the situation in Region 2, and of course for highlighting those last strategies in your presentation. This was very much appreciated. It is now time to turn to Region 3. We have Mrs. Blanche Akouala, President of AWISA Region 3, who will present. The floor is yours. Mrs. Akouala, I think you are muted. I just asked you to unmute. We cannot. Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes, you can hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. My name is Blanche Akouala, and I'm AWISA Regional President for Region 3. Our region have 9 countries: Cameroon, Republic of Congo Brazzaville, Gabon, Guinea Equatorial, Central Africa Republic, Burundi, Democratic Republic of Congo, Sao Tome and Principe, Republic of Chad. I would like to talk to you about sport Nzango, which is mainly played by women and has its origin in the African tradition. By doing this, I want to illustrate the determination and leadership that women show to promote and develop this new sport in African countries. The definition of technical rules has contributed to the modernization and the acceptance of this women's sport, which was presented in 1915 as a demonstration sport during the African Games held in Brazzaville. Nzango is now regularly practiced in the Republic of Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, Central African Republic, Gabon, and Benin as an elite sport or as a sport to keep healthy. AWISA is the platform that raises awareness about Nzango in Africa. Its goal in 2020 is to continue in increase the promotion of Nzango so that it is practiced in most African countries. The actual promotion of this sport is at the African level remains difficult. Although exchanges have been held with different ministries of sport to ensure that activity related of Nzango are taken into account of official decisions and taken up at the conferences of ministers in charge of sport to release of found necessary for the practice of Nzango is not systematic because the budget is consumed by the most common sports football, handball, basketball, and others. Furthermore, the recommendation made by the Council Sport Africa, Union Africa, at the seminar on women's leadership in sport and in Cameroon are difficult to use at the level of the sport ministries of the countries of region. So we need to think about what strategy to put in place to better promote Nzango and ensure its regular practice in most African countries. For more efficiency, discussions are conducted around the following points: the search for sponsorship by companies, the search for patrons, the involvement of those working in the field of women's sport, the training of women in sport. Our efforts and determination are increased by the fact that women's participation in elite sport is hampered by violence against them, which does not help their performance. Most often, girls become pregnant and sometimes drop out. Women's leadership in sport is also constrained by the perception among men that sport is only practiced by them. Most of the time, women's empowerment in sport cannot be done without the contribution of men. The lack of training and encouragement by men is a real hindrance, and in mixed sports, women have little place. By promoting Nzango, we want to give women the opportunity to practice a sport in high-level competitions and show that gender equity must be supported. Conclusion: we in Region 3 believe that efforts still need to be made to improve the promotion of new sport, especially sports played mainly by women. This will strengthen the well-being of the family and the society. It should be noted that the financial difficulties faced by companies due to the coronavirus pandemic are a barrier to the sponsoring. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Akouala. This was indeed a great example how to use a sport, Nzango, to involve more women to be active. And yeah, it was indeed very interesting. Turning now to Region 4, we have with us Mrs. Delta Horner-Ward, President of AWISA Region 4, joining us from the Seychelles. Mrs. Horner-Ward, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Good evening. Okay. Can you see me?
Yes, we can hear you. And
okay. All right. Okay. My name is actually Delta Ward Horner, not Delta Horner Ward, and I am from the Seychelles. Okay, I represent AWISA Region 4, and I will go straight to the point of the region. Region 4, we constitute of I think we have more countries than any other region, but my presentation will be on 40% of the countries of the region, because a lot of the countries has not kind of correspond or be involved with us. When I started with AWISA a few years ago, actually our vision was a little bit similar to the theme of the conference today. It was improving, the vision was improving, the underlining and the importance of participation in sports for all, as well as taking on leadership roles, as well as physical activities are equal and fair to them. You can still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm getting a lot of interruptions on my screen. Okay, I've taken my phone now. Okay, some countries in Region 4 we found are given equal opportunities for participation, and this makes it easier to empower women and they have a voice. But we do have other countries of Region 4 which we encounter the following issues. Even though they have equal opportunities, we still have a problem with the countries. We have lack of confidence and the lack of training, and we should really have more workshop seminars to bring awareness. Difficult, they have a difficult to change the mindset. Society believes that females should fulfill specific role. We also have a lack of support from many sport ministries to recognize the importance of women in sports. So we have to ensure, encourage, and empower women and give them equal opportunity in sports. Leadership in sports in Africa remained a big issue, despite a big improvement in a lot of countries. In my country, particularly, I cannot say we have a problem, but I have dealt with countries that have a lot of problems. In terms of leadership roles in some countries, even when they are given the opportunity, they, like I say, they encounter other issues. The opportunity is there, but they lack confidence. And I think this is due to lack of training. So lack of, like I say, lack of support again from the sport ministries. Society also believes that females should fulfill specific gender roles. What I think should be done in our region, we have a lot to do to advocate and lobby for the establishment of women in sports associations in all countries of Region 4. That has been my main problem when I took over. I do contact the countries. I don't. So if any of you are attending this conference now and you do belong to Region 4, please, I am here and you can still make your contact with me, because I did, that was one of my main problems when I took over. We also have to enforce the AU gender policy to have more mentoring and empowerment program for young women and girls. And so that's where we have to challenge the gender issue. We also have to encourage and empower women to take up leadership roles in sports entities, and also to push and go beyond themselves. Like somebody said that you will find, I have made a statistics in federations and associations in sports, whereas you will find in my country, I will take the example, you will find that there's very few women that will become chairperson of an association, but you will find most of the associations and federations, the women are secretaries Even treasurer, they're a little bit kind of, they say they cannot count or whatever, but you will find that they really do not take the role. So we have to look at that as well. We have to also challenge the underlying cause of gender inequality. We have to organize, like I said before, more training, workshops, seminars. We have to develop the girls and women and leadership skills and self-reliance. You will also find that we do have programs that kind of will help, but I will bring again lack of confidence. So this, what I found most in Region 4, that we do, most of the countries, they do have the opportunity. There are that they haven't got, there are that they have done mentoring programs, but we do probably lack of training, and we have to instill the confidence in the women for them to take on the leadership roles. So we have to advocate the development of guidelines and legislations and get the sport ministers involved. In my country, I am proud to say that we have done a sports policy, hasn't been passed yet, but I have managed to get the Seychelles Women in Sports in there with all its policies, and I hope it will go through. So other countries in Region 4, I'm also telling you, you can do it. You can push yourselves to kind of get on with your Ministry of Sports and put yourselves in and bring yourself forward. And I think the next time I speak about Region 4, I think we'll have more than 40% people joining me, and also a lot of progress. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ward-Horner, for this introduction to Region 4. We are now moving to Region 5 for the last intervention of this webinar. We have with us Mrs. Idalete Ferreira from Angola, who is the president of Region 5 for AWISA. Mrs. Idalete Ferreira, the floor is yours. Mrs. Ferreira, are you with us? You must be muted if you are.
Sorry.
Yes.
Can you? Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everyone. The vision of AWISA Region 5, like gender, equality, empowerment, leadership, and justice. We have historical inequalities in sport and culture. We are an active region. We have the greatest resource is the women resource. We need to follow more closely and rethink the action models like gender, equality, empowerment, leadership, and justice. We should run and jump obstacles together. With the cry of women organized with the Women's Sports Association, supported by the states of each countries, without functioning only in the sports ministries of the countries. We must grow more and more. That is why we are here. Mens, thank you for your sensitivity in working with you to break the silence. Do we want female sport leaders? Yes. If so, we purpose former sportsmen and women. Today we are the inspiration of the sports that we know deeply. women of sport. Because of sports, many women had to have fewer children, made less money than men. She lived between studies and sports. She happy today. She tells beautiful sports stories. The girls will cry for tennis, stigmatized by families who disapprove of women's sports. Today we are ready to intervene so that why the strong of the past, we make history for future free of stigmas and all stereotypes. But for the high-risk dream in the moment we live. Yes, why not? Without taxis for former sportsmen to continue the life of the leadership coach, referee, physiotherapy, sports medicine, recreation, and cultural sports motivators, or even funding in part of for physical education students. Would be a victory in health, in BNTS education and country's budget. The women can advocate for challenging projects preparing for the future. But she is unmotivated and the programs lost strength. So to overcome the challenges, we have to motivate first with the challenging project states policies, aligned politics aligned, we win any goals and technological equality. COVID stopped the world, what to do? We will have to sacrifice certain cycles to make women life, to make women life grown with equality. Say the studies in 2010, we will be 8 billion people in the world. And what sport? What society? What culture will we live? The impact of the pandemic will be experienced with great intensity. We discover how strong women are in adversity, like wars, COVID, Ebola, AIDS, catastrophes. And wisely, we will move toward the success of the projects implemented and through the development for young people. We are the influence walking through life, a woman for more. We will train the young for the challenges of the planet. We have the father heart. Is the intellectual success of our children, of our rural family, develop the cultural and recreation sports, the attract tourism, cultural, and in its essence and the global interactivity, which is diplomatic. And we ask for the support of committed states. AWISA needs great involvement from everyone for an Africa of women associates and committed female athletes. On behalf of AWISA, I thank TAFISA. I'm East Africa, I'm East AWISA Region 5, are 10 countries. I'm East South Africa, Botswana, Angola, Malawi, Eswatini, Lesotho, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Zambia. Thank you for all people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ferreira, as well for your presentation. And I would like to really once again thank all of the 5 speakers from the 5 regions to share the insights on what is the current situation and how we can increase participation, empowerment, and leadership of women in sport for all in your regions. I would like also to give a special thanks to you, to all 5 of you, because I know that some of you spoke in a language which is not your mother language. And again, I would like to apologize that unfortunately we did not have the technical ability for this webinar to provide translation, but we are hoping that for future webinars we can have various languages and allow you to speak in your mother tongue also for participants. So thank you very much. We are now coming to the end of our webinar. Unfortunately, we didn't have much time for questions and answers. I would like one last time to ask Keri to share her screen to find out what is the conclusion of our word cloud and what is the conclusion to the question to which we have asked you. In one word, what is needed to achieve gender equity in sport for all? This would be my last word for this webinar: education. I think there is a strong answer here that you have all given: education. And I would now like to pass the floor to 3 last speakers who will give words of conclusion. I see empowerment as also a very important word coming up. Our 3 speakers who will give words of conclusion are Mr. Barman, TAFISA Secretary General, Mr. Robert Auguste, Senior Sport Officer at AUSC, and your Honorable Dr. Pendukene Ivulaitana, who is AWISA Funding President. Mr. Barman, please, the floor is yours on behalf of TAFISA.
Thank you indeed very much, Jean-François. From my happy face here in Frankfurt, you can see that I'm very satisfied with how this seminar went over the last 2 hours. But to start with, I would like to take the privilege and pleasure to thank all of you for making this seminar a success. So my thanks go to the speakers, to the chairman and moderator, but also to all of you who so actively contributed. And I can already tell you now that we will go through all the written comments that we have received to analyze and to find out what are the major trends. But I would also like to thank the TAFISA team in Frankfurt for organizing and preparing this seminar. And this also includes our dear friend, Stanley Mutoya from Botswana, who is always at our side in preparation of various programs and a project that we are working with together. I'm extremely happy that this marriage that we entered into with the African Union Sport Council and the African Women in Sport Association was or is a success. I would believe we are now in the phase of honeymoon, and the project that is in the center of our honeymoon phase is the seminar. And I guess we can say it indeed went well, and it makes appetite to continue and to extend our cooperation. But I would also like to inform and remark that this sort of coalition or alliance is also open for other partners. And I'm also vice president of the international organization IXPE. And I would like to discuss with my board whether there is an opportunity to also join forces with this global organization. I'm happy that this format worked well, because we cannot always be sure that the technique is professional enough and that everybody is really getting used to this new format. I can say in our field, this new form of communication, which of course comes because of COVID, helps a great deal. And even though we only have very small budgets available, the Sport for All community in Africa and all over the world is joining again together. And of course, I'm missing these sort of personal interactions, but I'm very happy that COVID has not put us down. On the contrary, that we can continue to work together, talk together, and sometimes even have a virtual drink with each other. if you ask me what is my keyword for this seminar, I would like to pick up a quote from Keri, because she said to go against the grain. And I like this term because in a nutshell, to me, it symbolizes that the work that we have already successfully done in this field and that is lying ahead of us is something that is in its own right. There is no way to copy and paste from other fields of sport, maybe a little bit, but we have to be clear that we need to have our own vision, our own mission, our own lobby work, our own creativity, and of course also partnerships. Things will not come easy. However, with this strong group behind, in particular here in Africa, but also beyond, I'm extremely positive and optimistic that we will succeed. Once again, thank you very much to all of you. I'm very glad that up to 100 participants from over 40 or 45 countries attended today. I guess this is quite some success. And I guess it also gives us the understanding that we should move on. So I guess with our moderator, and I would like to give my particular gratitude also to Jean-François Laurent for not just preparing, but also chairing this seminar. I guess there will be a future of this seminar series, and we will see what we can announce to you in the near future. Once again, thank you very, very much here from rainy and cloudy Frankfurt to all of you all over the world, and stay healthy and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baumann. And the floor is now going to Mr. Auguste from the African Union Sports Council. Mr. Auguste, are you with us? Otherwise, Ms. Nzuza on behalf of AUSC.
Thank you, Francois. I guess Robert lost connection. On behalf of AUSC, I would like to thank TAFISA and AWISA. This wouldn't have been a possibility without you guys. I also like to thank all the participants from all over the world. This is just phase one. We'll have other series of webinars that are going to be coming up, and we'll appreciate if you guys join us once again. So on behalf of AUSC and our coordinator, Dr. Chipande, I would like to say thank you to everyone.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nzuza. And now I would like to turn to our last concluding speaker, Dr. Ifula Itana, AWISA Founding President. Otherwise, Mrs. Sheila Desha. We cannot hear anybody. Maybe Mrs. Desha could take the floor, as we are missing your founding president.
So it gives me again an immense pleasure to thank all of you, thank our collaborators, thank all the presenters, thank all the delegates who are here, who have been with us, who have listened to us. And I'm sure that all of us will go back home with something, with a learning, with something quite, even if we cannot implement everything, but some of it will come out of what we have done today. Because indeed, as Jean-François has mentioned concerning language, but I'm very happy that the presenters have been able to communicate in English and to share their worries, their problems, their strategies with us. So, I mean that for a first time, as you say, as Mr. Bowman said, about the honeymoon period, about the happy face. I think all of us, we are very happy because some of us, most probably, is the first time that we are having a webinar and that we have to speak in public. And some of us, we learn with time how to make use of slides and so on for a PowerPoint presentation. But we are still on how can we say, on our baby toes. So the best is to come, and we hope for that, and we are sure. And now that there is a vaccine coming along, so let's say that the world is going to be a much better place, and that women's place in that world also will be better, whether through participation, empowerment, or leadership. So we say then, thanks a lot to AUSC, thanks a lot to TAFISA, and thanks a lot to all of you, and also to AWISA.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Desha. Those were the concluding words of our webinar. Thank you once again to all of you for joining. It was a great session. It was my personal honor to be able to act as the moderator of the webinar. We have registered it. It is recorded. We will put it on YouTube so that you can all access the entire webinar in the next days. We'll also send to you by email the various PowerPoints that were shared by the participants. And we will also share with you contact information of TAFISA, AUSC, and AWISA so that you can forward any pending questions that have not been answered and that you might have to the three organizations. So thank you once again. This is the end of this webinar, only the first of a series that TAFISA and AUSC will be bringing to you, all together with AWISA. We look forward to having you with us next time. Thank you very much. And Keri, if you like once again to show our concluding words, this will be it for today. Have a great day, everybody.